Hello there, Romans here and welcome to another music review. I review every album from a viewpoint of a musician, as I am a singer, songwriter and a bass player for my own group Jakobe. And last year we have released our debut album called Pursuits in Life. What makes it unique is that it's a pretty heavy prog rock without guitars. Instead you have drums, bass, saxophone and keyboards. You can check out two of our music videos on my YouTube channel. We're building our own monument and Fake the New Kind of Beauty, and also a studio live take of A Way to Oppose. And in the description of all these videos you will find all the information about where is the record available. It's available on all digital platforms like Spotify, Tidal, Deezer, Bandcamp, but also in this digipack version of a CD with a very beautifully illustrated 20 pages long booklet. So in case you want one, all you need to do is contact me via email, on Facebook, on Instagram, or you can get them through Bandcamp. And today I'm going to review the new album from Tool called Fear Inoculum.
Music review. Music review.
As of now, I've heard the new album Fear Inoculum 5 times, so let's dive right into the review. This is quite arguably one of the most anticipated, if not the most anticipated prog album of this year, and probably even one of the most anticipated of all time actually. It's been 13 years in the making, and if they took another 14 years, it would take exactly as the title of their previous album, 10,000 Days. First thing that really got my attention was the track list. We have 7 tracks on this album, 6 of which are anywhere from 10 to almost 16 minutes long. So we have very long compositions here. The album opens up with the title track Fear Inoculum, which is the only track that has been released in the form of a studio version on the YouTube, so I guess at this point everybody has heard this track. And I really like that tribal oriental beginning that's very reminiscent of Tool and what they did in the past. And this is slightly more mellow as a song, and even though there are some heavy guitars, it never really gets too heavy and thus maintaining that tension. Also in terms of songwriting, it's very reminiscent of that mid-2000s alternative rock and alternative metal. There's this huge negativity and pessimism and darkness. Also what I've noticed, not just about this track but about the whole album in general, is the atmosphere it creates. It puts me into that post-apocalyptic wasteland, kind of similar to the one depicted in the computer game series Fallout. And this atmosphere is kind of what connects all the tracks together, because it seems like I'm listening to one very long piece of music rather than individual tracks, because the songs are pretty similar to each other. For example, Pneuma, the second track, if I pronounce it right, sonically continues and builds up exactly where the previous track left off with its intro. I like that bass riff that kind of reminds me of one of the main themes from the computer game Commandos 2, where you had that but in a very Tool fashion. Also what I've noticed is that they kind of like took Pink Floyd approach with the songs on this album, meaning that it's not only the length but also that they didn't overpack the songs with too many parts. Usually when we talk about progressive music and long songs, you expect a lot of time changes, a lot of various parts, and generally an unpredictable development of the track. But that's not really the case here. They take a lot of time with their songs to build them up, to develop them, and they progress very nicely. And therefore you kind of have this feeling, as I've mentioned already, that you're listening to one huge piece of music. In this track we also have an electronic synth sound somewhere halfway through the song, and we kind of hear the same synthy electronic sound in the song Invisible and then in the instrumental of the album, and it seems like a very interesting addition to the sound, but they are kind of careful about it. They never really let that electronic element to be too dominant, but it is there. I like that sort of minimalism of it. Also, because these tracks are very long, there are many instrumental parts, but these are not in a Dream Theater-like fashion, meaning that they don't necessarily show off, but it's more about the groove and the rhythm. I also have to appreciate not only the sound of the record, because I love the guitar, the bass and the drum sounds, but also the individual musicians. I mean, the riffs are just so fat on this album, and I absolutely love what these musicians are doing. Sometimes I was just listening to the drummer, sometimes just to the bass player, sometimes just to the guitar player, and I was like, wow, these people are phenomenal musicians. And you can hear that throughout the tracks, how well they are jamming with each other. The fourth track, Descending, still continues that post-apocalyptic wasteland, late 90s computer game atmosphere, but this song is a little bit reminiscent of another band of the lead singer called The Perfect Circle, and last year they released Eat the Elephant record, and there are some similarities between this track and that album. We have similar sonic landscapes. Despite how long these tracks are, there's sometimes it's just one or maybe not even one guitar solo, and because there are so few of the guitar solos on this album, they give more weight to them, meaning that when you hear a guitar solo, it kind of feels like that matters and it has a purpose why it is where it is. Then the fifth track, Calling Voices, if I pronounce it right. When the song starts, that guitar work and also the singing reminds me of one of the best prog metal songs of 21st century from Evergrey called A Touch of Blessing. There's this heavy, unbearable, almost hopeless atmosphere that is perfectly in sync with the rest of the tracks. This track is slightly more on the ambient side, despite the fact that the last third of the track is heavier. The sixth track, Chocolate Chip Trip, is the only instrumental on the album and only song under 10 minutes. And rather than instrumental, I would call this a combination of acoustic and electronic sounds combined with a drum groove. Personally, this isn't something I enjoy, so when I return to this album I will probably skip this track because it's just not my cup of tea. The final seventh track on the album is called Tempest and it's almost 16 minutes long. Also, this is the heaviest track with more guitar solos, and also instrumentally speaking there's a lot more going on than in the rest of the tracks, and that's why this song feels very climactic on the album. I think that this album, as I've mentioned, just creates this very interesting atmosphere that I don't really think I've heard anywhere else, probably outside of Tool records. One thing that I have to kind of criticize, but this is just my personal preference, I don't really like records that are very long. This album is almost 80 minutes long, and the ideal length for me is anywhere from 40 to 50 minutes. However, the length of the album is kind of one of the trademarks of Tool, because most of their albums are 70 plus minutes long, but it's just a bit too long and sometimes my mind was wandering away. I don't mean it in a way that there's any filler on a record, it's just that it is a bit difficult to really focus for such a long time on a record that progresses relatively slowly. Also, this sounds like a record made by a band that absolutely doesn't give a damn, because Tool are famous enough to do whatever they want, and this feels like a true artistic statement from them. To sum up, if you're a Tool fan, I personally cannot think of one reason why you wouldn't love this album. If you are like me, not necessarily a Tool fan, but someone who respects them and likes progressive or good quality music in general, this is a record you should definitely give a listen. And I've heard it 5 times, but I think I'm still like 10 listenings away from being completely familiar with this record. So we'll see in time how much I actually like this record. But as of now, I really like the atmosphere, I like the instrumentation. So that was it. You can let me know in the comment section below whether you agreed or disagreed with me. If you have heard the album already, you can let me know your thoughts. You can let me know how well do you think it compares to their previous stuff. Maybe what is your personal favorite album from Tool. You can follow me on Facebook or on Instagram. You can find the links to both in the description below. If you like this video, don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe. You can check out my own original music, and if you like Tool, maybe you're gonna like it too. You can check out my live performances and my worst to best series and quite a lot of other reviews as well, so thanks a lot for watching.